Having been in the entertainment industry for the past, let me reveal my age, 32 years, I think I have seen quite a bit of action, in terms of how mental wellness affects creatives. And one thing I think as a creative, and I am a creative as well, so I speak from the heart as well, is that we have a susceptibility to what we consider highs and lows. Some people would call those mood swings. Some people would call it excitement into depression. There's all sorts of phrases. But the truth of the matter is, it kind of comes with the territory. To be a creative, you have to be a little, let me use a very politically correct word, a little crazy. But here's the deal. That's where our creativity comes from. It comes from the unknown. It comes from the unplanned. It comes from the off the beaten track. And that's what makes creatives creatives. We're special people, to be honest. And sometimes if we don't understand where our power comes from, it gets control of us. So there's a study done quite a few years ago. About 3,000 creatives were interviewed, and it was by psychologists, and they were looking at the susceptibility to any mental illness for creatives. And the truth of the matter is, they did find enough evidence to suggest that creatives are slightly more prone to certain forms of depression. Certain forms, because there are different forms of depression, but there are certain forms of depression that creatives are actually prone to. And why does this come about? Well, one of the things, so we're going to talk about, sort of the pros and cons of being a creative in the wellness space. So some of the so-called challenges, I like to think of them as challenges, that creatives have is the fact that, now let's take a Kenyan context or an African context. The creative sector is not as developed as some parts of the Western world. So from an income point of view, sometimes, let's just say, income is not as steady, made worse in a pandemic. I mean, creatives, I think, understand right now in the pandemic, things are a bit thick, aren't they? But when you understand that also the lack of steady income really, really can get you down. And then payday happens and you get this extreme high because it's nearly unexpected. And those sort of mood swings sometimes, and that fear of, will I make tomorrow's rent, adds towards that, what's that word? The word I'm looking for is that susceptibility to mood swings. The other thing is actually societal. Being a creative as an entrepreneur, as a career, is still not totally encouraged, I would say, by our African society. There is still a feeling that, when you're born, you go to school, hopefully you go to university, hopefully you become, I call them one of the 5 or 6 careers, doctor, accountant, lawyer, teacher, work for government, kind of thing. There's still that kind of thinking that if you say you want to do music, you'll be asked as a career or as a hobby, And so already society has set you up to fail as a creative. So that lack of support also adds towards that sort of susceptibility. The other thing, and this is quite a major one, and it really affecting especially young people today, is social media. The pressure to look good, that pressure to look good all the time, the right angle, the right light, the right mood, the right success, my car, look at my house, look at my holiday. And half the time, majority of those creatives are living hand to mouth. It's an image setup. We are buying into a brand, into an image. The truth of the matter is, behind the scenes, they are going through a lot of stuff that they can't even talk about because it would hurt their image. And that's why sometimes, every so often, when an artist comes out and tells their story, like, okay, I was in an abusive marriage, or I was broke and I didn't have any money to eat, or I lost my house or my car, or whatever, sort of sad story that we didn't know about. Everyone says, oh, you're so brave, you're so... No, actually, you should be brave. You should be brave enough throughout to be honest. But we understand that our businesses are built on brands. So it's getting that balance sometimes can really get you down if you don't have any assistance, if you don't have any mentorship, if you don't have any help. The other thing is imposter syndrome. Closely related to that is when you get success and you feel, I'm not worthy of this success, and you think, oh goodness, they're going to find out I'm not really, this success was not for me, it was somebody else's. That imposter syndrome can really get you down. And I've talked about this in the past to a lot of creators, but the fear of success is actually bigger than the fear of failure. But that's a topic for another day. Just take that to the bank. So those are some of the challenges that creatives do have. And also, I'll give you an example for writers. Writer's block. Writer's block is the moment when a writer just goes blank. They go away for a writing retreat and they cannot write a single word. And this happens to script writers, to poets, to authors. And you always hear people saying, oh, I had to get away to a retreat to just loosen my mind. What is that? What does that mean exactly? It means they understand that there's a state of mind they're in that's not really conducive, and they need another environment to help create a better environment. That's all part of actually wellness, mental wellness, sort of healing in order to get more creative. But that can really cause a real downer when you can't create, when a musician can't write his next hit, or when the next hit is not as big as the last hit. It's all that kind of pressure, societal pressure to perform for creatives do make us a bit susceptible. Having said all of that, it's not all doom and gloom. When you look at creativity, actually, creativity has a lot of positives in it as well. Art, for example, painting and writing has been used over the years to help trauma victims, to help people just calm themselves down. Painting therapy, music therapy, even for cancer patients. I know artists like Susanna Wio went to California to train for a few months on how music for therapy, and she used to visit the cancer wards for children at Kenyatta Hospital and play music for them, and just it would soothe them. And it's so, creativity has definitely got positives. The other thing, when you sing a song in the shower, you shower Grammy Award winners, yourselves. What does it do for you? A Friday morning, everyone says it's Furahi Day, and then you start singing your favorite Friday song, and that gets you in a good mood, doesn't it? So that's part of creativity, lifting you. You don't have to be an actual singer or an actual creative entrepreneur to enjoy the benefits of creativity. But when you look at color, when you look at paintings, when you look at a really well-designed space, it just gives you pleasure without even realizing where it's coming from. So what it does, if I wasn't that good at biology. I think it's called the hypothalamus, part of the brain or whatever. It hits like a spot. It's like a spot, it's like a sugar high. It just hits like a spot. You're like, that tastes so good. And that's what creativity does to you. So even for the people who are actively involved in creativity, that's the high they get from their own art. When you code that app, when you paint that painting that, wow, you just thought about, when you write that song, that hit song, you get an absolute high from that. And it's a high sometimes, and then you win that award. My goodness, if you can fight the imposter syndrome, you enjoy that moment, So yes, of course, there's a lot of positives. And I think part of the challenge is for creatives to realize, one, that there will be some good and bad moments. Two, to realize that it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay not to be okay. Like, it's really okay. It's like everyone goes through that, whether you're creative or not. But more importantly, to reach out to somebody when you feel not okay, that it's okay to be vulnerable. And men, I'll talk to African men especially. I will say this without any fear, it is okay to cry. We've been raised in a society where men are told it's not okay to show that you're not okay. And this is killing men, not just in Africa, but worldwide, but particularly in Africa, where we have a cultural belief that men must be just, macho. But being a man does not mean being aggressive and macho. Being a man means knowing yourself and being true to yourself. That's what, to me, and that's how I raise my sons, to believe that it's okay to be you, you know, however you are, it's okay to be you. Don't be the image of somebody else. And I think that's a very important message we have to share as men, because we bring a lot of trauma into our relationships, and it affects our partners, and affects our children, it affects, you know, our families, our friends. Let's just be more real, and let's talk to each other. You know, guys, let's not just talk about, you know, football and, you know, Saturday night, you know, and all these frivolous things. It's okay to talk about those things, but let's also, as men, let's talk to each other a bit more about what's really going on in our lives. I think men need a much better support structure. Ladies tend to have a much better support structure. They cry more, they meet more, they meet with each other more, they're a bit more honest. We guys tend to just cover up, you know, looking good, you know, but you're suffering. Your business, especially now during the pandemic, your businesses are suffering, you know, you have all sorts of stresses, especially if you're a breadwinner. It adds even more stress. So that is my take on mental wellness and creativity. It's okay not to be okay.